Good morning, Morgan. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us on the Conscious Early Learning podcast. I'm super excited to be here. We'll just kind of begin with who you are and what the work is that you do so we can give our listeners a bit of a feel for what they're in for.
Amazing. Thank you so much for inviting me, Sarah. I'm so excited for this conversation that we're about to have. So, my name is Morgan, and I'm located in BC, Canada. And I'm a childbirth educator and breastfeeding specialist. So, I work with families right from pregnancy through the postpartum time and help to support and guide that transition to parenthood.
Such important work in the world. And with my second baby, I had a doula and birth worker. Her name was Alexa in Hawke's Bay, and she honestly just blew my mind with. I thought I'd done all the research and I knew all the things, but when I actually had someone on my team to support me in such a game-changing way, I began to see the real
Yeah.
value of the work that you do. So amazing. I have full respect for the work that you do in the world, Morgan. Um,
Thank you. And likewise, I was just going to say, as I was kind of delivering that, I was actually thinking how your work seems to be such a continuation of the work that I provide. And it's almost like, yeah, I just almost had this vision of like a handoff. Like, I'm going to take care of this. And then here's my lovely friend, Sarah.
it's like pass the baton in athletics.
Yeah, exactly.
So how do you think that that connection between the parent and the baby starts even before birth, like during pregnancy, as you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So that connection between the parent and baby is really one of the most profound and beautiful parts of the human experience in my opinion. And it's formed both energetically but also on a biological and physiological level too. So there's a hormonal exchange that happens between the baby and the parent. And so when a parent feels calm and safe, the baby feels and gets to experience that safety too. And conversely, stress and tension can also be shared. So there's studies showing us that cortisol can cross the placenta to the baby, but so too can hormones like oxytocin and endorphins. So I think as parents, it's important for us to approach that awareness with self compassion and not with guilt, because guilt's not going to be helpful in any way. But it can be empowering to know that the opportunity for co-regulation and connection is happening even before your baby is born. So when parents practice things like grounding and breath work, or even just pausing to connect intentionally with their baby, they begin to lay this foundation for a safety and calm that can continue even after birth.
That is so beautiful. So what do you think, like, as a birth worker, how is it that you help parents build that connection with their baby during their pregnancy? How are you like that catalyst for them?
I really try to help people understand that connection is cultivated. So it's not necessarily something that you may feel like immediately when you become pregnant, or you might wait for this sense of connection to show up, but it's actually something that is built through time. So in pregnancy, you can connect to your baby through intentional touch. So, touching your belly while keeping your baby in your awareness, holding your belly, just laying to feel their movements and connect to what their experience might be like. Meditation, visualizations, and affirmations that help form connections. So, it doesn't have to be complicated. Something as simple as My baby and I are deeply connected. With every breath, I send them love, safety, and calm. So, really, just small practices that help you move from up here in your mind down into your body where your baby's experiencing their journey.
Oh, I love that so much. I feel like with my first, I was very much into the meditation, the slowness, the presence, being in my body, doing all these like grounding exercises. I did one that I really enjoyed where it's like you're imagining tree roots going down as you're doing your own grounding, but then also your baby growing those tree roots down with you at the same time. So you're like supporting that
Mm.
visualization. And I also love what you said earlier about having that self compassion and not feeling guilt around those opportunities for co regulation, but also that connection is cultivated because with my second, I was so busy chasing my first that it got to, I think I was like 12 weeks and I went through, I had to actually stop breastfeeding because the nutrients weren't quite going through to baby. And I went and saw my reiki teacher, well, she's so much more than that, energetic support healer, and she was saying, look, like you're not really pouring that same connection into this baby. And I was just like, oh shit, no, I'm actually not. And I'm so up in my head. And so that was a real wake up call for me to get back into my body. But I think just highlighting that sentence where you just said connection is cultivated and there's, you know, that self-compassion that goes with it. Because I think as second time mums, it's so easy to get so wrapped up in the hustle and bustle of toddler mum life, which is crazy because I had two under two for about 6 weeks. Um, but yeah, I just love all of that reminder for everybody to go into, especially yeah when you're going into the multiples.
Yeah, and I think just for anyone listening, it's never about perfection.
Hmm.
It's always about presence. So it's always just about coming back into the present moment, which is where the opportunity for connection truly exists, right? So yeah, lots of compassion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors for sure, but I hope it's empowering to know that it's possible for you to have an impact. And with every breath and with every time you come back into your body when you're beginning to feel dysregulated, you're, supporting your baby in unseen ways.
And I think that goes on beyond pregnancy when they're in the real world. It's like that is the exact same philosophy, but it's just so beautiful that we can start that before they are. I don't even know if earthside is the right word because they are earthside once they're in your puku and once they're in your belly.
Yeah.
But once they're out in the real world, in the world of light, as opposed to being in the world of darkness, you've got
Yeah, exactly.
you've got a course coming up that you're doing at the moment, about to offer about empowering birth experiences. How does having a positive birth help to then create a strong connection and bond between that bond between the parent and baby?
Mm. Yeah, I think that in my experience, having an empowering birth experience instilled the strength within me to meet the challenges I would then face in parenthood. And so, after my first was born, I had a positive birth experience, but I struggled to recognize the the power that was me in the experience, if that sort of makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. And so I really struggled to meet challenges in parenthood. I didn't feel that sense of, just like empowerment. And so after my second birthing journey, where I was, really intentional with the actions I was making and the people I was inviting into the experience and the energy that I was creating about the birth, I really rose from that feeling deeply empowered that no matter what challenge were to come, that I had the resources, the resilience, the strength, the even if I didn't, know how to access it, that I would find it in my moment of need. So I guess that self-trust.
Mm.
And I think it also too can help you to reclaim a sense of power as a person with the ability to create life, right? It's an enormous gift and that we're able to offer the world, and having a positive birth experience can help us to really own that power, if that sort of makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, when I'm working with families, I'm really just trying to help them step into their own unique experience and to reinforce that it's everyone's goal to have a healthy mom and a healthy baby, and that they actually get to dream bigger than that. They get
Mm,
to unveil their deepest desires and bring that to the forefront of their experience. So I guess it's really just a permission to go big and to step into that power.
mm. And I think that's something that's not talked about nearly enough in society is what you said. Oh, but mum's healthy and baby's healthy. And yeah, when I had a C section and that was the last opportunity because I'd pushed for my 2.5 hours. And I was told that was what we were doing after attempting with instruments and then deciding that wasn't a good idea. All of these things that, had I known what I know now, I would have felt empowered to speak up and say, actually, I'd like to just take a break. Or actually, I would like to keep pushing, or, like making those empowered decisions. And maybe I would at a certain point in time, after sinking into my intuition, being like, yeah, actually, I choose to have that C section. But either way, whatever decision, like it might not be our perfect birth or exactly how we wanted it, but it's coming from that empowered place. And then I can also see how birth can be so healing from that, from going from a C-section birth to then putting a lot of time, effort, energy healing, physical healing, all of the things into then dreaming up this like dream home birth, water birth with my second. But I was also really, if I want for a better word, but fluid about how things would go, having some blood pressure issues, and we had an agreement, me and my beautiful midwife, if it was over a certain, I was like 160 over 100, if it was over like the really heightened state, that we would do a transfer. But when we did do the transfer, it was literally like a home birth at hospital. I had no other doctors coming in because all of these things were specified before then. So no doctors, no
Yeah.
nurses. It was just me, Johnny, my midwife, and Alexa, my doula. My midwife was Beck from, yeah, the midwives in Hawke's Bay. And yeah, it was just perfect. Like it was very, very fast. It was in the water. Johnny caught baby. Nobody touched us. They all just stood back and witnessed and let things be. There was no like rubbing off the cloths and taking the baby off and whisking them off to, cut the cord and da da da. It was all just so slow and empowering. And for me, that was so, so healing. But yeah, so moral of the story being coming into that place of empowerment and choice and knowing. A lot of people don't know that you actually have the choice. I mean, it's probably different over where you are in Canada and in New Zealand, but there is a surprising amount of choice in birth that goes completely under the radar and unrecognized.
Yeah, I think that that is such the experience here in Canada too. And I think that that is the power of going on a birth preparation journey,
Mm,
where you're, whether it's through like prenatal classes, or it's through your own sort of reading and research, or if it's through something more like what I offer, which is more of like a um, a guided process where we're going to weave through all of these decisions that you might need to make, all of the information to help you make those decisions from a really informed place, which includes your intuition too. And just taking time in your pregnancy to hold the vision for what you would desire,
mm,
and to take the actions towards that experience without the attachment piece, right? Because many people feel that like if their birth goes unplanned, or they need to choose a different path, that that's failure in some way. But changing your plan based on the circumstances before you is never weakness or failure. That's wisdom,
Yes.
right? And the ability to do that from a really empowered place, I believe, comes from developing self-trust during pregnancy, where when fears come up, you're meeting them, determining what is the desire underneath of the fear, getting any information that you may need to, so that when you arrive at your birth like you do and things need to change, you know what that looks like, and you've already taken into consideration what you're going to need to continue feeling safe and supported in that alternative path.
I think that's made like the biggest difference in afterbirth and the ability to just not get on with mothering, not just to get on with mothering, but to not feel like I'm healing from trauma in order to then mother from this connected place. So, what kind of advice would you give to parents who did have a difficult birth and then they want to strengthen their connection with their baby?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's really, really beautiful when people choose this path, when they recognize that how they're feeling is impacting their experience and they have the courage to turn their awareness there. And so where I would start is with the permission and the invitation to hold grief with gratitude. And so many people around you are likely going to be commenting on your and your baby's health and may not know that there were circumstances that felt really, really difficult to you. So often after birth, there's a lot of celebration, but not a lot of inquiry into what was hard or what didn't go as planned, or what are you maybe still holding on to that needs to be processed so you can let go. So oftentimes that's grief, and allowing it to exist amongst the gratitude, I think, is the very first step.
I love that.
Yeah, and then this one is challenging, but I think it's worthy, and it's to always find where you did have power in your experience. So though you may have felt powerless to the circumstances, like you said, Sarah, everyone has choice. Like ultimately, you are always in charge. So lots of times the language becomes like, I had to do this, or my care provider made me do this. And it's not to say that that wasn't necessary to keep you and your baby safe, but rather than outsourcing your power to them, can you bring it back to yourself? And can you change the narrative so that the circumstances were out of your control, but you stood in your power and you made the decision that was right for you and your baby in the moment? And that it wasn't someone else that made that for you, but rather you get to own the power, that you utilized your wisdom and you accessed your courage and you did what was needed to keep you and your baby safe. And I think that there can be something really beautiful and healing in that. And then to, you know, really try and avoid comparison to other people's journeys. And this was very much something that I struggled with after my first birth experience. And now that I work in this role where a huge part of my job on a weekly basis is debriefing birth, I am continuously amazed at the uniqueness and the individuality of birth, and how when we learn about it like it's this process, we kind of get this idea that it's the same for everyone. But still to this day, I don't think I've ever heard the same birth story twice. So everyone is truly going on their own unique journey, and that almost always involves meeting uncertainty, meeting unexpected, and finding your way through.
It is such a unique journey, as much as someone can say, oh, I had a hospital birth or I had a home birth. It's like, well, that's all going to look so different. The processes within each micro process, within each little tiny decision will completely change the experience. So, oh, I just think it would be like so cool. In another life, I feel like I was a birth worker, but it would be so cool to be witness to that. It's just such a miracle bringing life into this world, and it just looks in so many different shapes and sizes. So not having that comparison is another really key point that you made there. So how do you think mindfulness as a tool could help parents to feel more connected to their baby before and then after birth?
Yeah, well, I think mindfulness is such a powerful tool for anchoring us into the present moment. And I think both before birth and after birth, oftentimes, I know for myself, we can get caught up in sometimes wishing time away. Like, I just want to be at the end of this pregnancy because I'm so over being pregnant and I want to have my baby here. Or you're going through a challenging phase with your baby or toddler and you're just thinking forward to when is this going to be over. And then in contrast, we can get hung up on the past too, right? Like, I know for me, having my last baby, like every season gone was a season
Oh,
grieved.
yes.
And so, yeah. So I just think mindfulness is such a beautiful way for us to drop into the now, because the past, though beautiful, is history and the future is just a creation of our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, connection exists in the now. And if we can kind of take breaks from being up here, because it's necessary as parents to be up here, right? We have to like keep the train on the tracks. And so, but taking those opportunities to use mindfulness to just ground into the present moment, and also just to feel so empowered to know that that connection is always available to you and your baby is always ready for it.
Yeah.
Like anytime you take a moment to drop in with your baby and just experience a moment of presence together is like just a big hug.
That oxytocin release.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it really does. I love that how you describe that the presence, the now is where those connections are. It's where that connection exists. So yeah, it's a really great reminder. Not even just as babies, but as they grow older as well. There's research that shows that even if for 10 minutes a day you intentionally connect with your baby, toddler, child, whatever age, but giving them the choice of how they'd like to connect. So rather than trying to be in your head about, okay, well, we're going to do this and this is how we're going to connect, it's like actually get into that present moment and let them lead with that moment of connection. So a little tip for anyone that's seeking a bit more connection with their child, or if the words have been thrown around that your child is attention seeking, swapping the words to connection seeking. So, yeah, challenging behavior. First things first, seek connection. And
I love that.
yeah, in terms of energy work, you're also a Reiki practitioner. And could you describe a little bit to our listeners how energy and emotions during pregnancy and birth then affect that bond between parent and baby later on in life?
Yeah, I'm going to try so hard not to take this too far
Oh no, take
because
it
this is a
far. We like
really
going deep.
okay, beautiful. So, well, I think it's important to know first and foremost that you and your baby share an energetic field. So, not just during pregnancy when you're physically sharing space, but also in those early years where proximity and contact are really, really vital. So, babies are going to spend most of their time in physical connection with a parent. And so anything that kind of comes into your energetic field goes into your baby's energetic field too. And if emotions aren't completely processed, they can create either disruptions or blockages in the flow of energy. And the flow of energy is what allows us to feel alive and at ease and in alignment with our experience, which is such a beautiful place, both for parents and for babies to be. And so when I practice Reiki, I work predominantly with the chakras, which are the energy centers of the body, and both with parents and with babies. And it's such a beautiful practice to get to do this with a mom and a baby together. And so each chakra sort of governs a different aspect. And how we can relate this to pregnancy and birth is well, one way that we can relate it is that our root chakra, which governs safety and security, which is so essential to the hormonal physiology of birth, it's fundamental to that process, but then also to that ability to be able to regulate and to help support your baby to feel safe and secure too. The sacral chakra governs creativity and surrender, which are massive, massive, massive components of pregnancy, birth, postpartum, and the rest of your life.
The sacral being the womb space. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so the solar plexus governs power and confidence, which are, yeah, just really important for our sense of self efficacy and capacity as parents. And then the heart chakra, this is where we have unconditional love, right?
Mm.
So this is where bonding can be impacted. And so there's many practices beyond Reiki. There's tapping, there's holding, there's simply just connecting to that space that can help clear out any kind of old emotions or old beliefs that might be impacting your ability to really open your heart to connection with your new baby. And then the throat chakra, this governs expression and advocacy, which are really important aspects of both birth and parenthood. And then our third eye, which governs intuition, which is a massive part of birth and parenthood. And something that, in my experience and in many of the families who I work with, something that just tends to get stronger and stronger through time with repetition and with practice and with really kind of tuning into that. And it's interesting to see people who may be, at the beginning of their parenting journey, it may be their first baby, they tend to be really information focused, which is okay because we need to have that knowledge. But I often see parents who are, having subsequent pregnancies and subsequent babies focusing more on that intuition, and they feel more dialed into what does this feel like in my body when they're making a decision, which is a really beautiful, powerful place to be. And then your crown chakra, which governs connection to spirit, the divine, the beautiful place that surrounds us. And so there's many practices, like I said. I love Reiki, but I also love breath work, meditation, visualization, all of which can help to kind of just move energy through the body to help create more spaciousness so energy can flow.
That is a really good reminder to get back into, because I feel like with self care, I'm doing a lot of breath work, meditation, visualization, journaling, all the things. But one thing that I have forgotten, or just it's not been part of my routine, is doing my self healing Reiki. And honestly, like I think that is a little bit of a missing piece of the puzzle with my son and his big emotions and things that he's going through at the moment. It's like, well, duh, yes, our energetic fields are still connected, and he picks up on things from me and hears me thinking like, yeah, I'm feeling really, really good. I'm doing all the things. And I know those are all supporting me very, very heavily. But I feel like that icing on the cake would be to get back into doing my own practice of Reiki. And was so funny, listeners. Morgan and I both we turned on the camera because we're doing this via screen as well through a podcasting app, and we're both like sitting there like with our oracle cards. She's shuffling, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we got the same pack!" And I pulled a card, and it's literally like a baby in the womb, birth mysteries. And just before pulling that card, I had the thought, I was like, "Oh my gosh, imagine if I got that card! Like, how appropriate would that be?" Haha, yeah, pulled it. Not only that is Morgan, if you could share about what your card was, the mist, and then your other experience. Just that this is a little snippet of how energy can just show up in some magical ways.
Yeah, totally. So I pulled this card, which is called the Mist, and it's about trusting your inner compass and being led with from within. But it used the example of uh, water densifying and turning into mist, and how I interpret it is when emotions are stagnant, they become unclear,
Mm.
and that in order for you to experience clarity, to process and move that emotion, you need to create space, I suppose, in like that energetic flow. And I had received a very, very similar card from a different deck earlier this morning. So I thought that that was a really cool synchrony as well.
Specifically talking about mist as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
I love those
exactly.
synchronicities, and it's just like a little nice message from spirit that everything's working out as it should on the right path. And this is just such a beautiful
Yeah.
conversation. In terms of
Yeah.
how what we were just kind of segueing into self care for parents, and as well, this is for early childhood teachers because not only our energetic fields affecting our own blood children, but the children in our lives are so intertwined with that energetic field, especially working with a lot of early childhood teachers work either Monday to Thursday, Monday to Friday, and a lot of the children are there full time because their parents may or may not have the choice where they have to have their children in full time. So, what are some ways that um, both early childhood teachers and parents can take care of themselves while still having that connection with the children in their lives?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I personally think that simplicity is so important.
Mm.
The simpler we make something, the more likely it is that we're going to integrate it into our experience. And so I remember after having my second, actually, I was taking a little bit better care of myself. And I reached out to a yoga instructor friend and was like, I don't have time to do like a yoga class or even a recorded one because they're all 30, 45 minutes. Can you make me a 10-minute video of like a routine I could do every day? And I was like, no, like downward dog, nothing intense, like just so that I can like move my joints and like give my body some love. And so she did that, which was great. But she also sent me like a 1, maybe 2 minute video of a facial massage, just of her doing it. And she said, every time you put your moisturizer on, try to slow it down and just like really feel yourself, like feel your fingers on your skin. And that was so helpful because, I may have not been showering every day or sitting down to journal every day, but I was moisturizing every day. So that was
Mm.
something that was so simple that I could easily sort of integrate. And honestly, it felt amazing. Like it felt so special to take that 1 to 2 minutes every day and just touch my face. So rituals, I think, rituals that you can sort of integrate into your day that are simple, like breath work, and nothing fancy. Like this morning when I was dropping my kids off at daycare, I got off on this vision about children's yoga because a long time ago I got certified in it and I never did it, but I kind of was like, it came back and was like, well, that would be cool.
I love that.
And so, right? And then I was reminded of like peace begins with me, which is something that I learned in that I just didn't really apply to my own life, but I was like, how freaking simple. And like just to feel your touch and to
Mm.
have that sort of mantra and that reminder that it's always there. We just need to ground and so that we can access it. But I think, whatever works for you and like playing with it too. And just because something might not work for you now, giving yourself permission to come back to it at
Mm.
another time. And I say that because I tried to get into journaling for like, I don't even know how many journals I bought. Like, it was ridiculous. And then I would just throw them out because, they were a visual reminder that I wasn't doing the thing I
Mm.
said I was going to do. And not long ago, like maybe 3 weeks ago, I picked up a journal and I have not put it down. Like, just everything wants to be written on paper, and it's so therapeutic, and it's so yeah, it just feels so aligned. And so, had I never picked up a journal again because it didn't suit me at those other times when I was maybe trying to force it a little bit more, I wouldn't have discovered this beautiful tool for this, relationship that I'm now like able to have with myself. So, keep it simple. Yeah,
Choosing what works for you and not forcing things, not
yeah.
being like, okay, well, I have to do my 5 things in a row and it's all got to be whilst the children are busy. And like, I think if we can find ways to just um, do little snippets of it throughout the day, even like not feeling like we have to do this big, long ritual in a one big block of time, but even in front of the children, letting them see you taking care of yourself and modeling that to them. Like, I'll do breath work or tapping when my children are in the room, and then my baby girl will start copying and go and like kind of huffing at me, and I'm like, yeah, you do your breath work, baby. But I think that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
it's so
that's amazing.
so important, isn't it, to look after self. What was it? So for those that are just listening, it was the your finger and thumbs touching with peace begins with me. So like going through each finger and just tapping it on your thumb was the little mantra there, which is so cool. So, what are some other ways that parents and early childhood teachers can manage their emotions and their energy to be able to actually stay present with those children in their life, especially in those early days?
Yeah. I think it's really important to normalize, and I speak really directly, I guess, to those first couple of years because
Mm,
that's where I'm most focused right now.
sure.
But I think it's so important to normalize that babies needing to feed around the clock
Hmm.
is an indication of a normal, healthy human baby. And that also babies needing to be in close proximity or close contact or able to hear you or able to smell you or whatever it may be in your energetic field is the normal development of a healthy human baby. And so having realistic sort of expectations for what is, and then from there building off how you can best support yourself in that. And so I think it's really important to be conscious about what you're consuming in terms of like media and social
Mm,
media, and like the story that you're telling yourself about how things are supposed to be. And I think even just being able to check in with yourself around whether what you're feeling is the truth of the moment, or if it's something that you've picked up along the way or been sort of conditioned to believe. Like, I will not think of a good example live on a podcast, but um, sometimes we can get really fixated on this isn't how it's meant to be, something's wrong.
mm,
But often the truth of the moment is this is perhaps like a call for connection, like you said. Like, sometimes dysregulation comes to us like we're doing it wrong, we don't know what we're doing, something's wrong with our baby. But the truth of the moment is this is a call for connection. So how can we ground and simplify so we're able to meet that?
mm,
Again, rituals, like, I really truly have found small micro rituals to be one of the most supportive things. And I'll go back to journaling because that's working so well for me in my life right now. But I think it's an important tool for emotions, as emotions come up, that if we're not able to process them in the moment, which oftentimes we're not, but if we can even just write down a word or something that will take us back there so that we can do some self inquiry at a later time, Like, again, it's not about perfection, it's about presence. So if something's asking to be seen, but our external circumstances don't support us having the space that we would like to do that, then maybe just writing it down so that it's something that we can go back to and honor and acknowledge and let be seen at a later time.
Yeah, that's so like that's one of my mantras is it's like it's about presence, not perfection. And I've actually created a trigger journal that has just like a table set up. So it's like, what was the trigger? And then you can go through and see where was that in my body or what was the emotion. So it doesn't have to be big, long winded things, but these little tiny kind of self inquiry, like just kind of getting your subconscious thinking, even if you don't have time to write it down, definitely like not necessarily in the moment, but even at a later date, if you're looking back on it and for some reason you're feeling resistance to writing, you can still read these questions and your subconscious is going to start trying to inquire about where these have come from. So another question in there is this related to like my childhood or a past experience? So yeah, having these tools available to us are really, really powerful in not letting those emotions get stuck and stored in the body for longer than they need to. Like my biggest advice would be try and go back to it as soon as possible after you've felt triggered for whatever reason, like especially in those early days where you are feeling like you're trying to get everything right and you're trying to just be the best mother that you can to this beautiful new life, or you're trying to be the best teacher you can, knowing that you have this responsibility for raising this child, basically when they are in your care and your energetic field. But yeah, having that self-compassion and then that inquiry so that the next time it happens, you're actually able to like pause and have a gap between the trigger and your reaction. So yeah, that's a really beautiful way that you've just intertwined that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any other advice that you'd like to share before we wrap up this beautiful conversation in a nice little bow?
Well, I actually do want to share something. I'm just going to take a
Yeah.
sip.
So,
I try to share this as often as I can anytime I'm putting something out into the world, and it's a tribute to my doula training teacher, Jessica Austin. She passed in 2021, just shortly after completing the training, and she instilled in me so many nuggets of gold and wisdom. And so I decided at that time that it would be my mission to continue putting those out into the world. So the quote is, making things look easy isn't the only way to do them. You're allowed to cry, to complain, and to protest. It doesn't mean you can't. Making things look easy isn't the only way to do them, isn't the only way to make things worth doing, and isn't the only way to make you powerful.
I've just got full body chills. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
I really Yeah, I think that's such an important message because oftentimes we feel like if we can't do it perfectly, we can't, but indeed we can. And it's through that process of meeting the difficult thing that we're able to more fully step into our power.
Wow, that's powerful. And that goes for anything in life too, I think. That is, yeah, really something
Truly.
to take on board. Mm. Oh, thank you so much for taking the time today to be here and to embark all of your wisdom. I know this is just the tip of the iceberg. Yes. So honestly, we're about to jump on another Zoom together for our biz call in like literally 2 minutes. Otherwise, we would probably be here for another hour or so chatting away. But where can our listeners find you? Website, social media? I'll put them all in the caption at the bottom as well.
Yeah, so on Instagram, it's at Be With Birth, and you can also check out my website. It's bewithbirth.ca.
Amazing. Again, can't say thank you enough. Yeah, we'll do this again sometime soon.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a lovely conversation.